Trump's so-called Liberation Day. The announcement could affect trillions of dollars of U.S. imports, and there are fears that it could trigger a global trade war.
In a move that's sending shockwaves through the global economy, President Donald Trump has unveiled a sweeping set of tariffs, declaring April 2, 2025 as Liberation Day. This bold initiative aims to reassert America's dominance in international trade. But amidst the fervor, a storm of misinformation has emerged, including false claims that the late automotive icon Lee Iacocca endorsed these plans. How did this narrative spiral out of control, and what does it reveal about the intersection of politics, media, and public perception? On April 2, 2025, President Trump announced an extensive tariff strategy designed to bolster domestic manufacturing and rectify what he perceives as long-standing trade imbalances. This policy includes a universal 10% tariff on all imports, with higher, country-specific rates targeting nations deemed to engage in unfair trade practices. The administration asserts that these measures will rejuvenate American industry and reduce the national trade deficit. Amid the discourse surrounding the tariffs, social media erupted with claims that President Trump stated Lee Iacocca, the former president of Ford and chairman of Chrysler who passed away in 2019, had endorsed the 2025 tariff plans. This assertion quickly gained traction, leading to widespread confusion and debate. However, a thorough fact-check by Lead Stories debunked this claim. In reality, during his Liberation Day speech, President Trump referred to a television interview featuring an unnamed individual who had worked with Iacocca. This person reportedly praised the tariff initiative, expressing surprise and approval that such measures were being implemented. At no point did Trump claim that Iacocca himself had endorsed the plan. The rapid spread of this misinformation underscores the volatile nature of modern media consumption. In today's digital age, unverified claims can gain momentum swiftly, often outpacing the dissemination of factual information. This phenomenon highlights the critical need for media literacy and the importance of consulting reliable sources before accepting and sharing news. Furthermore, the incident reflects the broader political climate, where narratives can be easily manipulated to serve various agendas. The misrepresentation of Trump's remarks could have been exploited to undermine the credibility of his tariff policy or to sow discord among stakeholders. Such tactics are emblematic of the challenges faced in maintaining informed public discourse amidst a landscape rife with misinformation. On the economic front, the introduction of these tariffs has elicited a spectrum of reactions. Supporters argue that the measures are a necessary step toward revitalizing American manufacturing and achieving fairer trade deals. They contend that, despite potential short-term market volatility, the long-term benefits will include job creation and a more balanced trade environment. Conversely, critics warn of the repercussions, including increased consumer prices, strained international relations, and the potential for retaliatory measures from affected countries. Economists caution that such protectionist policies could ignite trade wars, ultimately harming the global economy and undermining the very industries they aim to protect. The conflation of President Trump's tariff announcement with the false endorsement by Lee Iacocca serves as a poignant reminder of the perils of misinformation in our interconnected world. As we navigate these complex developments, it's imperative to approach news with a critical eye, verify sources, and engage in thoughtful discourse. What are your thoughts on the new tariff policies and the media's role in shaping public perception? Share your insights in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analyses of pressing political and economic issues.
In just the last hour, the Dow Jones had its biggest loss since 2020 after fears from tariffs shook Wall Street. Dow Jones closed just short of 4% down, the Nasdaq down 5%, almost 6%, and the S&P 500 also slipping nearly 5%.
In an unprecedented financial upheaval, Wall Street has been rocked to its core. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted by a staggering 1,679 points, a 4% nosedive, while the S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite weren't spared, tumbling 4.8% and 6% respectively. This marks the most severe market meltdown since the dark days of 2020. The catalyst? President Donald Trump's sweeping new tariffs that have sent shockwaves through the global economy. On April 3, 2025, President Trump announced a minimum 10% tariff on all imports, with significantly higher rates targeting key trading partners such as China and the European Union. This aggressive move aims to rectify long-standing trade imbalances and bolster domestic manufacturing. However, the immediate fallout has been a surge of panic across international markets, reminiscent of the early turmoil experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic. The financial repercussions are profound. Major U.S. retailers and airlines, including Best Buy, United Airlines, and Target, have suffered significant stock devaluations. International markets are mirroring this distress, with notable declines in Europe and Asia. Investors are gripped by fears of escalating inflation and a potential economic slowdown, as these tariffs threaten to disrupt global supply chains and increase consumer prices. Economists are sounding the alarm. UBS estimates that these tariffs could slash U.S. economic growth by 2 percentage points and propel inflation rates close to 5%. The Federal Reserve faces a precarious balancing act to cut interest rates in an attempt to stimulate the economy or to hold steady in the face of rising inflation. The specter of stagflation, a dreaded combination of stagnant growth and soaring prices, looms large. The political arena is equally tumultuous. Supporters of the administration argue that these tariffs are a necessary gambit to reclaim American jobs and assert economic sovereignty. They contend that short-term pain is a requisite for long-term gain, envisioning a future where domestic industries flourish free from foreign competition. Critics, however, warn of dire consequences. They predict that increased production costs will inevitably be passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices on everyday goods. Industries reliant on global supply chains, such as automotive and technology sectors, may face severe disruptions. Furthermore, there is the looming threat of retaliatory tariffs from affected nations, potentially igniting a full-scale trade war that could cripple international commerce. The automotive industry is already feeling the strain. Stellantis, the multinational automotive manufacturer, has temporarily halted production at its plants in Windsor, Canada, and Toluca, Mexico, directly attributing this decision to the newly imposed 25% tariff on imported vehicles. This move has resulted in the temporary layoffs of 900 U.S. workers, underscoring the immediate human cost of these policies. In the realm of e-commerce, the elimination of the de minimis provision, which previously allowed tax-free entry of packages valued at $800 or less, has sent shockwaves through the industry. This change imposes a 30% duty on low-cost imports, predominantly affecting Chinese firms like Shein and Temu. Consumers accustomed to affordable online shopping may soon face higher prices and longer shipping times, fundamentally altering the landscape of cross-border e-commerce. As the dust settles, the nation stands at a crossroads. Will these bold tariff strategies pave the way for a renaissance in American manufacturing, or are we on the precipice of an economic downturn with far-reaching consequences? The stakes couldn't be higher, and the world watches with bated breath. What are your thoughts on these sweeping tariffs and their potential impact on our economy and daily lives? Share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analyses of the pressing issues that shape our world. A 25% tariff on baseball players? Yes, you heard that right. In a move that has both stunned sports fans and sent shockwaves through the global sports economy, former President Donald Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on all Japanese MLB players. And the fallout? Immediate and brutal. The Los Angeles Dodgers, long hailed as a global baseball powerhouse, are now facing bankruptcy. Is this political genius or economic sabotage? And why is America's favorite pastime suddenly the newest battlefield in Trump's trade war? As of April 4, 2025, this unprecedented move is igniting outrage, fear, and, believe it or not, nationalistic applause. To understand this chaos, we have to rewind. For years, Major League Baseball has benefited immensely from Japanese talent. From legends like Ichiro Suzuki to recent phenoms like Shohei Ohtani, Japanese players have not only elevated the level of play, but also driven massive viewership and merchandise sales across the Pacific. The Dodgers in particular have been at the forefront of recruiting top-tier Japanese athletes, investing hundreds of millions in international contracts, branding deals, and stadium upgrades aimed at Japanese audiences. But Trump, during a rally in Anaheim just last weekend, called this trend economic exploitation, accusing Japan of flooding American baseball with cheap elite labor while our players rot on the bench. Within days, his team issued a policy statement. a 25% tariff on all contracts involving Japanese-born players, including transfers, signings, and even renewals. First, the financial impact was immediate. The Dodgers, currently carrying multiple Japanese stars on their roster, including megastar pitcher Hayato Sakamoto, are now liable for tens of millions in sudden tariffs. Reports from Forbes Baseball Economics indicate that the team's operating budget is unsustainable under the new rules, and that several contracts may be terminated to avoid financial collapse. Second, the league itself is now in chaos. Teams like the Yankees, Mariners, and Cubs, all of whom have made major investments in Japanese players, are now lobbying behind closed doors to halt the tariff. But Trump's base is rallying behind the decision, calling it a pro-America correction that protects U.S. athletes from being overshadowed in their own national sport. Third, Japan is furious. In a statement released by the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Tuesday morning, Tokyo accused Trump of economic discrimination through sports and warned of retaliatory measures, including visa reviews for American athletes, entertainers, and business people operating in Japan. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred held a tense press conference on Wednesday, stating the league is exploring legal options and may attempt to bypass the tariff using international arbitration. But so far, the Trump camp remains unmoved. So, what does this really mean for America and for baseball? To supporters, Trump's move is the ultimate flex. They argue that Japan has long taken advantage of MLB's open system, reaping profits while offering little in return to U.S. leagues. This tariff, they say, will force American franchises to invest in homegrown talent and reassert control over their national sport. Critics, however, warn that this could be the start of a politicization of entertainment that turns every industry into a geopolitical chess match. If tariffs on baseball players are fair game, what's next? Actors, musicians, YouTubers? Moreover, the economic impact is staggering. The Dodgers alone face a projected $115 million deficit by the end of the season if the tariff holds. Several Japanese players have already entered contract disputes, and legal experts predict a wave of lawsuits that could drag on for years. And then there's the bigger picture, America's global image. While Trump may win points with protectionists, many fear this move sends a signal that no international collaboration is safe, not even in sports. Allies like Japan are beginning to question the reliability of U.S. partnerships, and global investors are watching nervously as this trade war bleeds into culture and leisure. So here we are. One man's tariff has thrown a $10 billion industry into disarray, pitted nations against each other, and possibly ended the golden era of international baseball. Is this Trump protecting American jobs and pride, or a dangerous overreach that could dismantle the very fabric of global sports? Will other leagues follow suit? Could soccer, basketball, or even esports be next in Trump's cultural crackdown? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Is this the future of sports, or its unraveling? Subscribe for more eye-opening political breakdowns and global power moves, because this isn't just baseball anymore. This is war.
China, first row. China, 67%. That's tariffs.
From President Trump's tariffs.
His trade war with new tariffs
on products imported to the United States.
In a stunning turn of events, CNBC's seasoned reporter Steve Leisman has unleashed a scathing critique of President Trump's latest tariff maneuvers, branding them as insane and potentially catastrophic for the U.S. economy. On March 12, 2025, during a segment on CNBC, Steve Leisman did not mince words when addressing President Trump's threat to escalate tariffs on Canada's aluminum and steel imports to an unprecedented 50%. The president's ultimatum was clear. Canada must agree to become the 51st state or face these punitive tariffs. Leisman, acknowledging the professional risk, labeled this approach as insane, highlighting the erratic nature of the administration's trade rationale. The backdrop to this controversy is the administration's escalating use of tariffs as a tool to coerce foreign nations into trade concessions. President Trump has consistently argued that imposing steep tariffs will compel countries to relocate manufacturing to the United States, thereby revitalizing domestic industries. However, critics contend that such measures could trigger retaliatory actions, disrupt global supply chains, and ultimately harm American consumers through increased prices. Leisman's critique centers on the perceived recklessness of threatening a close ally like Canada with exorbitant tariffs tied to an implausible demand for statehood. He expressed concern that such tactics could deter foreign investment, stating, "We need massive amounts of capital if we want to fund our deficits. And it seems as if this administration is doing everything it can to chase the foreign capital away." This isn't the first instance of the administration's tariff policies sparking controversy. In October 2024, during a discussion at the Economic Club of Chicago, President Trump engaged in a heated exchange with Bloomberg editor-in-chief John Micklethwait. When questioned about the potential negative impact of high tariffs on American consumers, Trump retorted, "It must be hard for you to spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong." Adding another layer to the debate, CNBC host Jim Cramer has voiced support for the president's tariff strategy. On March 27, 2025, Cramer declared, "I am pro-tariff, absolutely. I hate free trade. It's cost us fortunes." He argues that free trade has been detrimental to American industries and that tariffs are a necessary corrective measure. Supporters of the administration's tariff policies argue that these measures are essential to protect American jobs and industries from unfair foreign competition. They believe that tariffs can serve as leverage to negotiate better trade deals and encourage domestic production. Conversely, critics warn that such aggressive tactics risk alienating key allies, provoking trade wars, and imposing higher costs on American consumers. They caution that the uncertainty generated by these policies could deter investment and destabilize markets. The implications of the administration's tariff strategies are profound. While the intent is to bolster domestic industries, the potential for retaliatory measures from trading partners could negate any gains. Moreover, the unpredictability of these policies may undermine investor confidence and disrupt global economic stability. The internal discord within the administration, as evidenced by the divergent views of figures like Leisman and Cramer, further complicates the narrative and raises questions about the coherence of the overall strategy. As the administration continues to wield tariffs as a central component of its economic policy, the nation stands at a crossroads. Will these measures lead to a renaissance of American manufacturing, or are they steering the economy toward a perilous path? The stakes are monumental, and the outcomes remain uncertain. What are your thoughts on the administration's aggressive tariff policies? Do you believe they will ultimately benefit the American economy, or do they pose too great a risk? Share your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth analyses of the pressing political and economic issues shaping our world today.